Had the option to move it to my home world. Yeah. Urgent report, Lord Captain. The barges carrying the tithe have been seized and are heading off in an unknown direction. Multiple sources are voxing the flagship at once. I detect the signatures of several noble houses and the administratum. Who dared to seize the sacred tithe? What do the noble houses want? What does the administratum message say? Who would dare to seize the sacred tithe? We are getting reports of it being an order of the Adeptus Administratum. We've received several official forms to the effect that Dargonis' orbit is currently deemed unsafe for tithe storage due to an unspecified threat that has sprung up on the world in your absence. What do the noble houses want? The Vox is silent for several minutes. The messages have no discernible structure or cause. Professions of loyalty, audience requests, even pleas for leniency. One thing is clear, Lord Captain. Something has agitated the upper echelons of the nobility. In other words, they're scared. And what does the administrative message say? You're requested to come to the Palace of Justice in person. The prefect speaks of a terrible heresy that is threatening the von Valancius Protectorate. While you are away, steps were taken to prevent the spread of corruption. However, your presence is required to make the final decision. Prefect Vultor will meet you in person for the confidential conversation. What do you say, Solomon? It seems the law faltered on Dargonis as soon as its master left it unattended. The disjointed reports from the ground sound strange, if not outright suspicious, but only you can put an end to any heresy on your own planet. You're right, Vigis. Prepare a shuttle for me and my retinue. I could not ignore this if I wanted to, so let's find out what heresy is threatening my domain. Tithe bars must be recovered at any cost. I will depart for the planet at once. So all three of these are essentially saying the same thing. I think finding out what heresy is threatening my domain is the current high priority. As you will, Lord Captain. There's a lot of lore and they allude to multiple areas. Smart how they made it attractive to the Venetian and novice gamer. Yeah, the game is great even if you don't know 40k lore, and it calls out enough to enough areas that what little people, because no one knows all 40k lore. I'm not going to say no one does. There's probably some people who do, but most people have their areas that they focus on as their favorite areas of lore, and they call it to enough of it that they're probably going to call out to whatever areas different people find interesting, which I think was a very good way of handling it. Dargonis is crying out for aid, Lord Captain. Riots over the interpretation of scripture have broken out in several hives across the world. While hunting for the agents of the Cult of the Final Dawn, the ecclesiarchy clamped down on the planet's minor cults, attempting to force correct adherence to the creed upon the populace. The commoners grumble about the oppression of the minor cults, even daring to claim that the holy ecclesiarchs have assumed the sole right to speak for the God Emperor. Many of the disgruntled flee to the ruins of the Scipion hive since the Foreman clan has promised them protection and support. It is even said that the Foreman supply the malcontents with weapons converted from industrial equipment in case of large-scale clashes. The enforcers and the agents of the ecclesiarchy have been able to curb the malcontent so far, but division grows wider by the day. Well, glad you could make it. Yeah, and spell check is rough. You always hope it's going to help out, but often it doesn't. Why are the foremen involved in this as well? A great question, Lord Captain. This group does come up in the reports from the capital world rather often. I can assume that this is due to the fact that their now ruined home, Scipion, they used to have a prevalent, more simplistic form of revering the Emperor. The preachers there used to teach the Scipions the importance of hard work and the labor collective's familial unity, but seldom the importance of order and hierarchy. They offered their congregation a form of faith that was simple, cheap, convenient, and functional as their work clothes. And now they seem to think that the priests who wallow in luxury want to take this away from them. Is there any reason to believe that the disturbances are inspired by heretics? Thankfully, no, your lordship. The rabble-rousers zealously oppose heresy, fill the ranks of the planetary guard with new recruits, regularly outperform quotas, and attend prayer service. The Foreman clan has been actively involved in uncovering the underground devotees of the ruinous powers, and has discovered 2 large and successfully operating cells. Our agents are quite confident that the likelihood of them harboring agents of the Cult of the Final Dawn is far lower than in other segments of the population. So without our advisors, we have the option of gaining security and a Book of Minor Prayers at the cost of complacency. Book of Minor Prayers being where cannot use Psychic or Navigator powers, the wearer gains 40% chance to ignore damage from Psychic and Navigator powers. I mean, there's plenty of people in my retinue who aren't using Psychic and Navigator powers that would benefit from not having to take Psychic damage. The Ecclesiarchy should curb their appetite. They should go fight against dissent somewhere where it will not end in riots. Where we gain complacency, lose security, and Patron of Cults. All allies gain 15 lore Imperium. I mean, a bonus to all of us gaining some skills seems more useful than a relic that I'm probably not going to bother equipping to anyone. Are you familiar with Wizards and Warriors YouTube channel? They do good animated history of the lore. I am not. I could potentially check them out. I'd like to hear what my advisors have to say. Small deviances in the creed beget large ones, and large ones beget heresy. Our faith is founded upon absolute trust in those above us, and if these people's belief push them towards dissent, then those beliefs have been wicked from the very beginning. But that does not necessarily make the preachers themselves wicked, perhaps simply misguided. We could pass them into the Ecclesiarchy's care for re-education so that they may see the truth, and it would also guarantee their flock's obedience. I don't agree with Abelard here. There are a lot of faiths, cults even, that are accepted as being accurate, even if they are, or being allowed, even if they do deviate from the standard Imperial Creed. For instance, the Cult of the Bloodspun Web, that we have a assassin Bloodspun Web member of our party. That is definitely very different from standard Imperial faith, but is still an accepted Imperial cult, where the belief, though different from standard teachings of the God Emperor, are still accepted as close enough and therefore fine. Tech Priest is a different cult, and that's pretty far from standard Imperial Creed, but is still accepted, mostly because it's necessary, but also because of some, minor belief that, oh yeah, the Omnissiah that you worship is kind of also the God Emperor, so you're technically not breaking Imperial law, so we'll allow it to slide. Which I think is a bit... It's pushing it. Because you talk to any tech priest and it doesn't seem like they're worshipping the God Emperor. Shireen, perhaps you should stop allowing the fat cardinals and their servants to do whatever they want to your people. Rein them in. Faith in the Exalted One is not contained within the ranks and titles, but within the hearts and hands of the common people. And even this can take many forms as well. Let those who shoulder the welfare of Dargonus at least choose in what manner they pray to him. Take the minor cults under your protection. Those who wish to worship him in their own way. Yeah, so like she has her own way of worship that's different than the standard Imperial creed taught by the Ecclesiarchy. And it's fine. Those who wish to worship him in their own way must prove their right to do so. The only help that would be proper in this situation is to provide instruction. Send one of the spinners to show how they can defend themselves. They will either take up arms and protect their faith, or bow down. So they are struggling to interpret the scriptures. I know one sacred text that proceeds from the Emperor, and that invites very few conflicting readings, the Lex Imperialis. None of the troublemakers would dare question the importance of his law, or misconstrue what is written. It would serve them well to settle down and study the Injuncta Cardinal from cover to cover. Read the Lex Imperialis, all like 10,000 volumes or something. Cover to cover. Yes. I mean, maybe the Injuncta Cardinal is just a specific smaller set than the sum total of the Lex Imperialis. I don't know. Detain the preachers of the troublemakers and send them to be re-educated. That now gives bonuses with the Drusians. Ooh, that's a lot more tempting. We still get the Book of Minor Prayers and Security, but it no longer costs us complacency. Send a spinner to Dargonus, bearing guidance. Let's see how firm they are in their beliefs. Gain security and grace of death. All allies gain a critical hit chance bonus. That's very good. The newfound death cults on Dargonus offer nightly prayers for the Undying One to guide the rogue trader's hand in battle. Minor cults are hereby under my protection. Would give a bonus to Fellowship of the Void, who I don't really care about and we haven't been trying to befriend. Patron of cults, all eyes gain Lord Imperium and some complacency. Or the Lex Imperialis shall be a new pillar of faith for all without exception, which just gives security. I don't know, relationship with Drusians is very tempting. But a critical hit chance is also nice. Yeah, you need more Drusian faction support? I know I do. So I think I'm going to go with that one. Detain the preachers of these troublemakers and send them to be re-educated. We're not really struggling in combat, like at all. So, as much as I like the idea of boosting our critical hit chance, I don't really need it. And we do need more relationship with the Drusians. Good. The hostages will keep their flocks from making rash decisions. The enforcers firmly dispelled the crowds with shock batons and choke gas. They burst into the chapels of the condemned cults, beat the servants, smashed any sacred symbols deemed unorthodox, and smothered the dangerous embers of spiritual disunion looming over the planet. Relics that were not an affront to the God Emperor were confiscated. Religious freedom. The disobedient preachers were shackled and brought into the sanctuaries of the ecclesiarchy to learn the true meaning of the creed through humility and obedience. Their flock, intimidated by unspoken threats of violent reprisal against their spiritual leaders, have since fallen silent. Excellent. And that gives us Bastion. I guess let's look at what we can build next. So Bastion now unlocks Schola Progenium, which is good, a Librarium, or Society of Cartographers. So the Schola Progenium, a new entry into the annals of Dargonus, the fate of millions of orphans whose parents fell in the fire that gripped the Expanse. It would give us, or it would cost us some provisions and some weapons. We would get Loyalist Garb, a light armor, 50% is pretty high armor for light armor. The wearer is not moved during their turn. Their cover efficiency is increased by 20% for 1 round. If the wearer moves at least 3 cells per turn, they gain plus 20% dodge for 1 round. So if you're either standing in place or moving at least 3 cells, you're quite a bit dodgier. That looks really good. Costs us profit factor, gains more efficiency and security throughout the Imperium, and 21 more people. Not that people is really a problem at the moment, but I do like the general feel of this one. Librarium. Since Dargonus is an educated world, it is the right place to establish a secret librarium where scholars of the arcane will be free to share their knowledge and delve into the forbidden. Probably not that. Costs us Xenotech. We would need secret layer to have been built on Janus. I do like that this one tells us that it's Janus. Most of them don't tell you, it's just like, this has to be somewhere, and I'm like, where? This helps cast a Bellica mission, which I don't care about. Gains us profit factor and Echo of Victory. Whenever the wearer attacks any target in a 5-cell radius around them with a ranged weapon, this attack deals 13% more damage. Yeah. None of that really matters to me. A Society of Cartographers. Bravest captains will unite under the Rogue Trader's aegis. Upon being offered invaluable charts and other assistance with their expeditions, the Voidfarers will repay the favor with goodwill and trophies. Cost Promethium and mechanisms. Lose Profit factor, gain relationship with Imperial Navy. That's not bad. Xenotech and adamantine, which we could use. And then Woebringer as a Drukhari weapon. Yeah, probably not. Say powerful two-handed sword, but I don't have anyone that's really using two-handed melee weapons that also has Drukhari proficiency. Probably gonna go with the Scholar Progenium. Even though I would like the Navy relationship. This one feels better for our dogmatic playthrough. Now, back to what we were actually here for, the Palace of Justice. And yeah, Solomon will come with us. The rest of the team, I think, is fine. It's our usual team. You may be able to get that with one of your contracts. Oh, you mean the adamantine and whatnot? Yeah, there's a lot of contracts that I haven't looked at lately. I mostly look at them when I realize I need more points for other things. Probably should look at more contracts. Prefect Inscribia Vultur raises her eyes to you. Rogue Trader von Valancius, welcome back to the Palace of Justice. What is happening on Dargonus? What is the cause of the panic? And why this private conversation? Are the Tithe Bars detained? Very good question. Is the world under attack? Are there any casualties? Also good. I'm still thinking that she's guilty. That's my ongoing theory until proven otherwise. What is the cause of the panic and why this private conversation? That is why you are here, is it not? To learn why the world is distressed, why the air is charged with Vox transmissions. Any administrator worth their station would be concerned. Disruptions to established processes always lead to, well, no matter. The prefect peers at your face. Her voice sounds strange, deeper, calmer, less cantankerous than usual. Have you ever pondered the nature of heresy, von Valancius? Perhaps to your mind, heresy is merely limited to xenos, warpspawn, and insurgents. But there are other heresies whose existence is far more easily forgotten. Those of negligence and avarice, of confusion and disorder. What are you getting at? Enough of this nonsense, answer me plainly. Whatever form it may take, heresy always treads quietly, unbeknownst to its ultimate victim. I believe both of us have given some thought to this in recent days. If there's any interesting equipment that I haven't picked up from vendors, probably. What are you getting at? Rogue Trader Ignatius von Valancius, in accordance with the amendment to Decree 64-98 DF issued by the Adeptus Administratum and the Adeptus Arbites, you stand accused of countless heresies that threaten the sacred tithe and the well-being of the Protectorate. All related statements have been formulated and evidence of your crimes registered. The proceedings will commence as soon as you and your accomplices present yourselves as the accused. The prefect looks at you with the eyes of a snake. A trial awaits you, Ignatius. Yeah, she's guilty. She's been intentionally twisting things so that we would look bad just for this moment. Who in the void do you think you are? A trial is my protectorate. I am the law here. This was all one carefully orchestrated spectacle, wasn't it? Yeah. Or grab our weapon. Yeah, I'm gonna go with 3. We could ask who she thinks she is, but she's in a position where she has the authority to call us out. She's just intentionally twisted things to make us look poor on all the records so that she can use that authority. But it's not that she's doing anything outside of her purview. And she knows it. This was all one carefully orchestrated spectacle, wasn't it? The prefect, who is about to turn away, stops and glances back at you with a fatigued look. What? You twisted my report on Thessar to paint me as a heretic. Your only goal has been to get your hands on the tithe from Lethus. Both probably true. That one's certainly true. You spied on me. You knew every word I said. How does it feel to sneak glances at one whom you could never hope to become? Or a terrible persuasion. Oh, this is using our own stats. We don't get to use Cassia's stats, who would be perfect at both of these. You wanted to go to Lethus yourself. A foolish mistake, Prefect. Your impatience was too obvious. Just admit it, you set me up. Now, we're going with the awareness. I don't want to miss that. You spied on me. You knew every word I said. How does it feel to sneak glances at one whom you could never hope to become? Your taunt hits its mark. An angry grimace passes over the Prefect's face. She immediately recomposes herself, but it is too late. You saw how much your words have offended her, and she knows that you caught her reaction. Unsubstantiated conjecture mixed with an inflated sense of self-importance. I'm honored to do my duty wherever his will commands me to be. You twisted my report on Thessera to paint me as a heretic. All I did was provide a summary of the results of your expedition, a summary stripped of dubious attributes such as declarations of good intentions and de-emphasizes consequences. Your only goal has been to get your hands on the tithe from Lethus. Filter size, not everyone is driven by greed and thrill-seeking, rogue trader. I see your position has clouded your mind, regrettable but unsurprising. Without due discipline in judgment and actions, it is only the most likely terminus. I'm going to try this persuasion. We're going to fail it, but I'm going to try it. I succeeded on the 15%. We rolled a 13. Fantastic. Yet another painful crease appears on the Prefect's brow. You feel confident that your comment got to her. I simply wish to do what you as Theodora's successor was supposed to do. Protect the sacred tithe. There is no point in trying to present my reasonable desire in a damning light. Coercion, again, a terrible chance. Cassia was here. We'd have this, no problem, which is why they didn't let her be here. Your blatant attempts at manipulation were painful to observe. The crude works of a talentless old crone who thinks herself worthy of judging those who are superior to her in every regard. Just admit it, you set me up. We're going to try the coercion. It's going to fail, but I said that about the 15%, and we got that. No, it failed. As expected. The Prefect looks you in the eye without blinking. Her lips slowly stretch into a faint smile visible only to you. Resorting to insults in the face of imminent downfall? How base, Von Valancius. Not unlike yourself. She makes a gesture towards the arbitrators and turns away. So we could just attack her here, which isn't going to work out in our favor, particularly with the 10% athletics. So we will go to trial. So be it. Let's see what you have prepared for me. The Prefect gives a dispassionate nod to the arbitrators behind you and turns away. And now she's sitting in our chair. Yeah. In the name of the God Emperor, the Von Valancius dynasty stands accused of betraying the Imperium. To the murmurs of all, the Prefect picks up a scroll bearing the Administratum seals. The trial is public so that all may see the rogue trader's heresies and know that status and power are no shield against righteous punishment. Marshal Strox, you have the floor. State the list of crimes against the Lex Imperialis that will be examined here today. With practiced skill, Strox's voice reverberates through the hall, conspiring to steal the sacred tithe, undermining the legitimate authorities of an imperial world, involving sorcery and damage to the tithe, conceiving and executing plans to disrupt sector-wide tithe shipments. Interrupts Strox. I deny the whole pack of lies. The charges are fabricated, and this trial of a rogue trader is a farce. Jan, will this take much longer? Abelard, answer the charges. Listen in silence or attack. I'm bored of this farce. By the rights granted to me by the sacred warrant, I declare this trial concluded and you both guilty. I don't know that the Marshal is guilty. She is certainly guilty. That much has been made clear. But depending on what she's told him, he could be acting on false beliefs and therefore not guilty himself. Abelard, answer the charges. I like having Abelard give my statements for me. It amuses me. Barely containing his seething rage, Abelard thunders, Ignatius von Valancius, bearer of the sacred warrant, the God Emperor's anointed and sovereign of the Protectorate, denies these false accusations. The Administratum and Adeptus Arbites will not get away with this flagrant attempt to sully the rogue trader's good name and plunder his dynasty's coffers. Make no mistake. Let the record show the defendant disregarded the opportunity given to him to repent, which only adds to the gravity of his guilt. We will proceed to the examination of the individual heresies committed by the defendant. Conspiring with the captain of the Heartless to steal the sacred tithe. I love the complete FU responses. Playing evil could be funny. Absolutely. I've never been much for playing evil in games, but part of me wants to see how it would play out. But particularly when I'm playing a game that builds party members so well, like detailed, and they want you to really connect with them, I struggle to play evil as it involves them. Because I don't want to be evil to my party members or push them down an evil path. Games that are more silly about the evil, like Fable games. When I played Fable 1, yeah, I played evil. I played good as well at once, but I did one playthrough evil just to see, because it didn't feel bad to me to play it. For something like this, I think I would struggle going evil. Conspiring with the captain of the Heartless to steal the sacred tithe. Upon arriving on Rykad Minoris, the rogue trader aided Captain Sargona in loading the tithe onto his ship under the cover of a planetary riot. Ignatius von Valancius later eliminated his accomplice using Adeptus Arbites forces led by Proctor Anthar. The Proctor attempted to appease the rogue traders and agreed by offering the frigate known as the Heartless in exchange for the safety of the tithe. After realizing the utter incorruptibility of the Arbites, the rogue trader attempted to destroy the tithe ship. Only the timely intervention of the Proctor saved the sacred tribute. Then the rogue trader boarded the ship in an attempt to seize the tithe. His actions led to the death of a squad of arbitrators. Proctor Anthar alone survived the rogue trader's murderous ploy. Ignatius von Valancius personally eliminated his accomplice, Captain Sargona, in order to destroy the evidence of his schemes. The prefect looks up from the scroll and sweeps her indifferent gaze over you. Do you have anything to say in your defense? Ah, now I get to have my party members help. So I can just say, Solomon, tell them what really happened. Or I can let Solomon use his coercion skill. I can appeal to your own common sense, Marshal Strux. Can you recall even one instance where a heretic attempted to steal the tithe while taking a few dozen arbitrators along for company? Very good. Persuasion with Cassia. You were talking nonsense. With all due respect for Solomon's capabilities, if I had wanted to get rid of him and his arbitrators and steal the tithe, there's no way he could have stopped me. Very true as well. I will never confess to something I did not do, much less something I never had any intention of doing. It's an interesting tale. You forgot the part where we were suddenly attacked by a void kraken, but Solomon bravely fought it off with a can opener in his bootlaces. Say nothing or just attack. We're gonna go with Cassia's persuasion. You're talking nonsense. With all due respect for Solomon's capabilities, if I had wanted to get rid of him and his arbitrators and steal the tithe, there's no way he could have stopped me. A furrow cuts across Strock's brow. Attempting to threaten a rogue trader on his own vessel would indeed have been an imprudent choice. Let a new charge be added to the record, attempting to manipulate an official. Marshal, I hope I do not need to remind you of your duty. Giving Strox a suspicious look, the prefect turns back to the documents. According to the calculation of the tithe transferred from the Heartless, the Administratum was short 3 units of volume. It is presumed that the rogue trader did not risk seizing more in the presence of the Proctor, but even 1 ounce unaccounted for makes the tithe incomplete. Let's move on to Thesara. This world underpaid the appropriate tithe amount, a crime that should have been remedied by the rogue trader escorting Proctor Anthar to the backwater world. To the backward world. Proctor, you are hereby called to testify. Describe what happened on the planet. When we arrived on Thesar, the rogue trader and I were drawn into the machinations of the planetary governor. He used sorcery on the Emperor's anointed, but the rogue trader managed to overcome the effects of the ritual and do battle with the heretic. The governor was executed, and we... the governor was executed, and we... A lie uttered in the Palace of Justice is a serious offense, Proctor. Glado, retrieve recording Thesar 84/Alpha. Did they put a false memory on Glado? The prefect nods to the marshal, who removes a device from his belt. The press of a button, and Glado responds with a sharp metallic clang. Cybermastiff's paw carry him to Strox. Cybermastiff's entire body begins to tremble, his feet clawing up tiny sparks, and then he projects a picture recording from his eyes onto the floor. The footage depicts a scene from Glado's viewpoint. The quality is terrible, but you can make out the hall where the sculptor is conducting the sinister ritual. You see Maeve interfere with the ritual, and the beam of warp energy connecting the two of you. You hear Solomon's command. The scene changes and you see Maeve, or rather yourself in Maeve's body, wandering through the streets of Thessara. The next clip brings you back to the hall where Solomon is firing on the altar. The events in the recording are echoed by dragging pain in your muscles and a fog in your head. Okay, so that all seems accurate. Solomon's face turns lifeless, his knuckles white. I thought my wholehearted loyalty to the Lex was obvious, but you were monitoring me, keeping tabs on me like some kind of outsider, like a non-arbitrator. You even dragged Glado into it too. It would have been better if you'd installed your damned recording devices in me. I always recommend an auto-eject switch in one's throne chair. I mean, that sounds dangerous. But yes. As we can observe, Proctor Anthar destroyed the heretical altar, and then a fight ensued in which the psyker died. There is not a single shred of evidence that the rogue trader actually overcame the sorcery. It is more likely that the person standing before us is a heretic and a creature of corruption. Or Warp 90. The consciousness in this body is my own. Any psyker capable of mind reading can confirm it. Good, but it's not 100%. Or coercion. Did you watch the entire recording? Notice any differences in behavior, did you? Well, I cannot prove that my consciousness is in my body no more than you can yours. Show consent and say nothing or attack. I mean, the lore warp is the better choice, but I don't want to go with a 90% and risk failing here. And this is fine. It doesn't feel as convincing to me. Did you watch the entire recording? Notice any differences in behavior, did you? Well, Strax huffs a laugh. You seem to be quite offended by the insinuation that you're prone to fainting spells. Well, it is quite strange. Marshal. The old woman stares at the arbitrator without blinking, as if hypnotizing him. Finally, convinced that the marshal's conversation with you is over before it even began, she returns to her papers. Yeah, so I'm not certain that the marshal is with her. I think she just convinced him, but the marshal is trying to do the right thing. She's guilty, of course. The prefect leafs through a few pages in a folder. The court also takes note of the pernicious effects of the rogue trader's handling of the Emperor's servants entrusted to his authority. Since arriving from Thessara, the rogue trader has done his duty by passing judgment on several subjects within the walls of this hollowed hall. The prefect picks up the sheet of notes and wrinkles her nose. Connivance at the doleful host's fanaticism and the loss of a value astropath resulted in the appointment of a new choir master. That same day, he lost several messages of utmost importance, thus sparking a war between two Koronus Expanse worlds. As of now, one of those worlds has been completely destroyed and the other deemed uninhabitable. You're telling me that because I required a astropath to be replaced, and a new astropath put in charge, the new astropath that I didn't choose failed to deliver some messages, and that got so out of control that two worlds are destroyed or uninhabitable. And that's being put on my shoulders. Inscribia picks up the scroll that carries the Ecclesiarchy seal. Allow me to read out the decision of the honored representative of St. Drusus' mission. We brand the one who dared it subject... Oh, right. It was St. Drusus' mission that we said they were free to kill the astropath if they declared that they were a religious organization. That's how that one played out. We brand the one who dared subject Anvalis, a holy votary of the faith, to a martyr's death, a heretic, and an associate to evil of every kind. Lord Molas, deemed to be alive, committed a transgression of soft-heartedness in running his family enterprise. He released all his convicted workers and terminated the contracts with his primary suppliers, citing their moral qualities. His actions resulted in 12 kilotons of undelivered food rations across several recipients. First, the Administratum is unable to do its duty and asks for help, and now it has the audacity to criticize the verdicts of the rogue trader. Prefect, your accusations do not merely cast aspersions on the competence of the Administratum, they challenge the sanctity of the decisions of the Emperor's anointed. Persuasion. I cannot predict the future. Poor outcome is a possibility in every case. If I had chosen a different path, the Prefect still would have found fault with it. Very true. For Lore Imperium, these cases were under the jurisdiction of the Lex Dargonus. Responsibility for the consequences lies with you. Also great. It's all a terrible mistake. They made a right mess of this, haven't they? The talents of my subjects never ceases to amaze me. I'm gonna go with the Lore Imperium. I mean, just saying that I can't predict the future doesn't feel as damning against her as saying this is actually your fault. The cases were under the jurisdiction of the Lex Dargonus. Responsibility for the consequences lies with you. Your words are true. Crimes committed after a verdict are cause for new convictions, not... Marshal, enough! Not a single muscle twitches on the Prefect's face, but her eyes blaze with barely suppressed annoyance. Moving on, the defendant was placed in an unprecedented position of trust by the Adeptus Arbites and the Administratum. He was entrusted with the coordinates of the world where the tithe of the entire Koronus Expanse was held. As agreed, the defendant was to transport the sacred tribute to Dargonus, but what did he do? We did so. The Marshal snaps her fingers over Glado's head. The Cybermastiff flinches as if from a bolter shot, but obediently plays another recording. You recognize Solomon's voice. So Lady Theodora intended to steal the tithe from the start. She arranged the world's destruction to cover her tracks, installed a servant to keep an eye on things, and even made a contingency plan in case of her own death. All she needed was an opportune moment like this one. With the Expanse being torn apart, the plan's death looks convincing. Tithe theft, orchestrated by Theodora von Valancius, committed by the defendant, witnessed by Proctor Anthar. Solomon, don't you have anything to say? I intended to return the tithe to Marshal Strox in full, regardless of Theodora's plans. Which is very true, but we'll let Solomon say it. This court has no authority, as it is part of the Prefect Vultur's machinations. Subversion of the Emperor's justice will not be tolerated. Solomon's gaze sweeps over the arbitrators and pauses on the Marshal. I am forced to explain the obvious, and it only underscores the blindness that has afflicted the servants of his law. But he's not going to say any farther. I intended to return the tithe to Marshal Strox in full, regardless of Theodora's plans. On the matter of the sacred tithe, we rely on facts, not your words. That Theodora planned to steal the tithe is established fact. The destruction of Lethus is also beyond dispute. To allow you to execute your plan would have been highly imprudent. The sacred tithe is not intended to be used by anyone other than the Adeptus Administratum, the deliverers of his will. Strox does not turn to look at Inscribia, but you have no doubt about whom he is addressing. The Adeptus Administratum, like the Adeptus Arbites, only oversees the allocation of the tithe. I do not need to remind you of that, do I, Prefect? Yeah. So she's trying to say that they have the authority to use it, and he's like, no, you don't. You have the authority to allocate where it goes, but not its use. Vultur sets the pile of papers down heavily on the table and looks around the room. While the proceedings are nearing their conclusion, the Prefect looks around at the nobles of Dargonus gathered in the hall. The collection of transgressions and heresies that have been brought before this court of the God Emperor's servants has once and for all branded the rogue trader an abomination, who thought all his deeds and has sought to satisfy his petty and base desires, rather than truly serve him. You are here today to witness the fall of the von Valancius dynasty and the long-awaited punishment that has been served upon it. Houses of Dargonus, do you reject the authority of this heretic? Governor Drivestrom, who in the past we have had trouble with. If I might interrupt, Mistress Vultur, Urban Drivestrom, Governor of Dargonus, visibly nervous at the sight of the armed arbitrators, nevertheless raises his head haughtily. We are much obliged to you for arranging this gathering. The emphasis on the last word leaves no doubt that the noble's presence at the palace is involuntary. However, all that has now taken place here does not change the facts.
House Valancius holds the warrant of trade. House Valancius is a rogue trader's dynasty, and no amount of legal contortions will change that. House Drivestem is loyal to the rogue trader. How about that? Thank you, Drivestem. Oriana Gaprak makes the sign of the Aquila. No shadow shall fall upon the name Von Valancius or eclipse the radiance of the beneficent rogue trader's line. Whatever your mechanical dog may say, House Gaprak is loyal to the rogue trader. Macarius Sourback raises his head, his eyes burning with an almost deranged loyalty. Venerating the letter of the law is not fidelity to justice. Straying from the tenets of the Lex is not discerning the essence of truth and the granting of retribution. The man is silent for a few seconds before he almost shouts out, House Sourback is loyal to the rogue trader. Amateur Viserion looks straight at you as if the prefect does not even exist. She makes the sign of the Aquila and speaks in a low voice. House Viserion is loyal to the rogue trader. Allow me to address you, even though I am not of the first families of Dargonos. Proctor Yeagar, Adeptus Arbites, Lethus Outpost. Ignatius von Valancius made every effort to not only save the tithe, but also the Arbites contingent stationed on Lethus. I propose that such an act would have been entirely nonsensical if the rogue trader was intent on simply stealing the tithe. End of report. Nice. Prefect Vulture stiffens as though what she just heard has come as a very unpleasant surprise. Her slender fingers grip the armrests of her chair, her knuckles cracking. This world and its denizens are rotten to the core. No, you are. The prefect draws herself up straight with such force that you hear the arduous grinding of her implants. Her voice is cold and slightly tremulous. Decree GC-781/89, Supplement 982, for tithe theft, participation in foul sorcery, and other crimes against the Imperium, Ignatius von Valancius is sentenced to death. The property of the dynasty is hereby confiscated and placed under the oversight of the Adeptus Administratum. Any last words, convict? Marshal Strox, you have heard my arguments and the prefect's distorted version of the truth. Do you require yet more information before you denounce the real culprit? Very good. Dogmatic. By the God Emperor's will, the von Valancius dynasty was granted a warrant of trade. Go against me and you go against the God Emperor. Marshal Strox and Prefect Vulture are hereby sentenced to death. Those who aided and abetted them in this plot will share the same fate. Also a decent choice, but again, I don't think the Marshal is necessarily against us. I think he believed her lies, but every time we pointed out that it was wrong, he realized that he had been lied to and that she was telling lies. So sentencing him to death, I guess, is kind of the Warhammer 40k way of anyone who is roughly associated with heresy is just assumed a heretic themselves and put to death. Iconoclast with a persuasion that we will succeed at. Arbitrators. Vulture and Strox believe the Lex Imperialis is but a collection of letters and forms to be played with as they please. They believe that you must blindly follow their orders, but whom do you defend, humanity or these prefects? I call upon you to stand with me in the name of humanity, not the soulless machine of the Administratum. Or heretical. Your evidence, arguments, and witnesses, and even the Lex Imperialis are just pathetic attempts to gain the upper hand over someone like me. There is only one law in the Expanse, and I am it, and I sentence you all to death for insubordination. I'm actually going to take this one, rather than the dogmatic option. Marshal Strox, you have heard my arguments and the prefect's distorted version of the truth. Do you require yet more information before you denounce the real culprit? There is weight in your arguments, Rogue Trader, but even if you are right about the prefect, that does not immediately disprove all the accusations against you. The right to judge is granted by the God Emperor. Can you swear that at this moment you are guided by the Lex Imperialis and not someone else's intent? Very good. It is a difficult thing to admit that one is in the wrong, Marshal. You have stumbled by putting your trust in Vulture, but I have faith that you will make the right choice now. Or heretical, you have demonstrated clearly that your vaunted Lex is worth nothing. You bend and mold the law to suit your desires, and yet power is so intoxicating, so difficult to give up. Am I wrong, Strox? You should have joined my side while you still had the chance. We're gonna go with the dogmatic. The right to judge is granted by the God Emperor. Can you swear that at this moment you are guided by the Lex Imperialis and not someone else's intent? Scribia heaves in a breath, ready to launch into a vehement tirade, but the Marshal raises his right hand and everyone falls silent. That is enough, Vulture. Volter, I trusted you, and I failed to notice when your wise counsel turned into instructions and orders, when my every action became subject to your avaricious schemes rather than the Lex. But now I see things with perfect clarity, the way you try to manipulate the truth to achieve your ends. Clenching his fist struck Thunders, you turned me into a puppet and then trampled on his laws. Very true. Prefect Inscribiat Volter, you are charged with fraud, attempted assassination of the Emperor's anointed, and undermining the foundations of the Lex Imperialis. Surrender now and accept a dignified death. I must refuse. Marshal Gregor Strox, I charge you with treason against the Imperium and conspiring with a heretic. Thanks the Expanse to battle. And that is her mercenary group that she hired. Illegally. Mostly illegally.